Well, good afternoon to everybody. Blessings on your life. Uh, I'm trying to see whether or not I'm coming through clear. I'm having some video technical difficulties, and I don't know how that's coming across. There is an old, I ain't gonna say it is old. I'm gonna say that it's a modern colloquialism, and it is probably more pronounced in the African American community, the Black and Brown community, than it is in any other community because of results of life that we see um, in our ability to scale successfully, to navigate successfully through life. And it says to us that if you want to hide something from a man, put it in a book. If you want to hide something from a man, then put it in a book. And again, this adage, this colloquialism is not relegated to my knowledge to Black people, but I find it to be pronounced in Black and Brown people and men, particularly because that's what we're talking about here. So they say if you want to hide something, and the wisdom there is that if you want to hide secrets, if you want to hide wisdom, if you want to hide understanding, why is that they say put it in a book? Because the book is going to be the least likely thing that a man is going to venture, that he's going to be inquisitive about, that he's going to peruse, that he's going to search out. So they say put it in a book. Conversely, they say that if you want to hide something from a woman, and again, we're talking about a certain demographic here and more pronounced in the Black and Brown community, that you put it in money. Why is that? And I find it to be relevant today, especially as we look at all the things that are going on with women's rights and so on and so forth, the feminine movement, the womanist movement. And that's not me uh, denigrating that. It's just to highlight that these are some things now that are very concerning to females. And so they say that if you want to hide it, to put it in a dollar, put it in money. Why? Because that's where the struggle has been for women. And so most women, they resort to, for comfort, for um, relevance, they resort to money. That, in other words, that's going to make them feel and know that they're relevant, right? And so if you put it in money, what it's suggesting, the colloquialism, the proverb, if you will, is that they will become blind to everything else. Why? Because their value, the measure of their worth, has been taken away from them for so long in the I don't want to call it a person, but the power of money, the essence of money, right? And so I'm saying all that to say this is that we have been dealing with a series now, and the series is Lord, restore our souls, and that is a deep cry, and it's becoming deeper and deeper to me and for me as we navigate this whole thing. Because what I'm discovering is that that's really what is needed. That's really where the problem is. The problem now is in the soul. So I bring up these 2 points with the woman with money and the man with the book, because what I'm trying to highlight or capture here is something to for you to relate to, for you to contrast that we don't necessarily. Now, this is not to be carte blanche. Okay, this is not saying that this is not a blanket. It is a blanket statement, but it's not relegated to everybody. But it is a blanket statement. It's an overarching fact. Uh, it is an overarching discovery that we will find if you do your homework to investigate it. And so, likewise, there's this thing called the soul, and the soul is also absent, just like things that a woman should know, should go after, and maybe she won't go after because of the pain in her life, the distress in her life, the absence of things in her life. And once you put money in front of her, she gets clouded to the point to where she does not look at anything else. Why? Because she feels that what she's been looking for and wanting for and longing for, it's in front of her. And that can be a substitute. Now, a money can be a substitute for everything else. Conversely, the man is not going to venture because he's privileged. He is not going to venture into a book or anything like that because he feels as if he knows everything. And so there are nuggets. There's things of value that both sexes will be without. They will be absent of it because they already have a bias. They have a predetermined predilection, if you will, to go a certain direction. And so the soul now becomes very relevant. The soul becomes very relevant. So I want to continue to talk about this a little bit. And I think that it's necessary and it's important that we put value to this soul thing. And I wasn't able to capture another picture because my Canva is acting weird, and so it's not able to download at this time for some reason. So it keeps coming up with an error. But my message today is titled Nephesh. Nephesh, and Nephesh is the soul of a man. When I say man, I'm not talking about just a gender. I'm talking about all of us are a man. All of us are a man. The Bible says in Genesis 2:7 that God breathed into man and man became a living soul. He was formed out of the dust of the earth, but God breathed in him and he became a living soul. So the word soul there in Hebrew is from the Hebrew uh, number 5315, which means nephesh. We talked a little bit about nephesh and we defined nephesh in my last video. But we want to go a little bit deeper because I don't want to continue to reiterate things that we have already discussed. But I do want you to understand how critical this is to our spiritual position and our existential position in life, our our uh, our wellness, um, our being, our inner being. I want you to understand how significant this is to us. And so when we look at the word nephesh, I presented a few questions here, and we understand that it is the soul of a man. So that's what it is. And where does it come from? According to Genesis again, 2:7, and even Genesis 1:25 will give us a preview into where God is going with that. It denotes where it comes from. Then what is its purpose? What is its purpose? Its purpose is to give you the wherewithal, the option to move, to live, to have your being according to your wishes. God is not one that will just pounce on you and say you're going to do it this way. What he does is he sets before you, according to Numbers, he sets before you life and death. And he says, choose one. So it is the ability to have the will to navigate life your way. But he is God now. God is hoping that you will navigate it his way. All right. So that's the purpose of it. And how did it become wicked or contaminated? We looked at this word wicked before, and I defined wicked with an analogy with furniture. And I said that wicked now is a derivative, or wicked. Wicked is a derivative of wicked. And it's where we get wicked furniture. Wicked furniture is a truth with a twist. And most of us now, because we're talking about our soul, I'm trying to get there. Most of us are walking around with a soul that has been twisted. So from the beginning, when we look at Genesis 2 and 7, when God breathed the breath of life into man and he became a living soul, at that particular juncture or that particular point, the man's soul was straight and the man's soul was upright. But then what happened to the man was when Adam and Eve was in the garden and Satan came and tempted Eve and beguiled them, and she convinced Adam as well that the fruit was good. And so once they ate of the fruit, which was prohibited from them to eat of, then sin entered. That's where the contamination came in. And so once the contamination came in, now we have a soul now that is twisted, or a soul now that is wicked, a soul now that is contaminated. And so hence is where we are today. And all of us are all tied up and twisted up and tangled up. And we've got a lot of conditions that we are not aware of. I stress this point a lot, and I think it's necessary that I make mention of it, and I do it probably in every message. Hosea 4 and 6 says that my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. One of the issues, and it's very pronounced for us today, is that we don't understand who we are, where we come from, and what is going on with us. And so there is a soul issue, because although we are a threefold being, we are spirit, we are soul, and then we are flesh. But the issue is that the soul now, what's supposed to be in control is the spirit. The spirit now is that portion that comes directly from God. It is God. It is the fellowship of God. When God says to Jeremiah, I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb, that's telling us a story. That means that God had fellowship with a being, with the man that you are, which is who he is. Because when God said in Genesis 1 and 26, 1 and 26, 27, let us make man in our image and in our likeness, what he was saying was that he is going to be us, but he's going to be us in the earth. And so now this person, this man, was already in existence with God even before the foundations of the world that we know of, the world. He was already there, but God wanted to continue, and then that's where he created the soul. The soul also was immaterial. What I mean by that is that it was not something that you could touch, nothing that you could see, nothing that you could feel. And so we have two aspects now that are coming from God. One is God himself, the image and the likeness of God. You have that, which is supposed to control or influence the soul to the point to where it comes under subjection or obedience to God, God that is not contaminated, God that can never be contaminated. When we read in the book of Ecclesiastes, it talks about man when at the separation of death, then it's absence of the body present with the Lord. The thing that is present with the Lord is not the soul per se. The thing that goes back to the Lord immediately is the spirit of the man, because the spirit of the man is God. So it is God now recapturing who he is. There is nothing that can ever happen to God nor the spirit of God. So in you, you have that portion of God. You are not always aware of the God inside of you, of the image of God that is inside of you, but it is there. It is the job of the enemy now to keep you disconnected from that. And so now we move from that part, which absent from the body, present with the Lord. And I know a lot of people, they put uh, a person in the purview of God soon as they die. Well, you know, he in heaven now, or she in heaven now. The part that's in heaven, or the part that goes back to God, is the part that was made in his image and in his likeness, created in his image and his likeness. That's the part. The soul does not, and the body definitely does not. When we commence the body to the earth, we say ashes to ashes and dust to dust. Why? Because the body now is going to go back to its source. Its source is the dust. The Bible says there in Genesis 2:7 that he formed man out of the dust of the earth. But it's this part now that he breathed, which was his soul, the nephesh. The nephesh now is the key part. It's the main player. It's the star player, if you will, of the body. Because as we navigate, you have to understand now the body becomes the it becomes the outlet. It becomes the byproduct of the soul. So what we see, the behavior, the thoughts, the will, the understanding of man, the mismanagement of man, all these different things, it becomes a soul issue. It's a soul issue. And so we need to understand that. And I spent more time here than I wanted to, just dealing with the soul, or trying to get you to understand the nephesh is where I want to get to today. On last week, and that's just very truncated. On last week, I talked about in Exodus chapter number 12, and I referred back to a message that I taught maybe a year or even 2 years ago. And I said that the title of the message was Saved from Our Father's House to Be Saved. And in that message, what Moses was trying to say to us is that all of us need to be saved from our Father's house. And the way to do that is you have to take a lamb. Now, you can go back and read that. You have to take a lamb, and that lamb has to be according to their fathers. Their fathers is what the text says. He says, each household must take a lamb according to his father or their fathers, meaning now that all of us will have a different type of lamb that we need to take. Now, the lamb is one of the same person because it was a shadow or a type of Jesus, and Jesus has the wherewithal to be a lamb, or to be salvation, or to be redemption for every aspect of sin or behavior or distance or brokenness from God that you can ever imagine. However, we are all not plagued with the same thing, but we all need to see the same Jesus, right? And so Moses was giving them a type or a shadow, and he was saying, as we go into this Exodus, the Exodus is to be separated from where we were to get to, or to go to where we need to be. He says in this, what you need to focus on is a lamb according to their fathers. I illustrated on last week in the message a year or two ago that we all have to be saved from something that is different. We are all different. We are all different. And so we can't look at this as just not a cookie cutter, a one size fits all, because your challenge, your issues in life may not be my challenge or my issues in life. So I gave you a little insight on my life per se in last week's message, or whenever I talked last Sunday or whatever. And I also did it when I taught the message saved. Actually, it was a series, Saved from Our Father's House. A few years back, and I'm trying to get somewhere. A few years back, uh, my twin brother and I, we both have sons, and we were having a discussion, an open discussion, and we were laughing at how we were, not laughing at the point at from the position that we were happy about it, but we were laughing about it and shaking our heads. It was like, man, it's just this is just terrible, right? And so what we noticed was that both of our sons, they took a page from the old playbook, and the playbook was from Daddy's playbook, right? And Daddy's playbook went all the way back to their daddy's playbook. And when I say fathers, it's not relegated to a man. Fathers is male and female. You really need to understand this, because your behavior, whether it is good or bad, is a direct correlation, reflection, connection to who birthed you. Where did you come from? And in that, see, right now we are all Adam. We are all Adam. Whether Adam was 7,000 years ago, however you want to, tally that up, whatever, we are all, David said, we're all born in sin, and we are shaped in iniquity. Because of what Adam did, we have become that. And so it is being expressed a little bit differently. One of the challenges that we had, and I mentioned it in brief on last week, was that uh, uh, what I said that, I'm always trying to run, and I didn't like the fact that when I really looked at myself and examined myself, and I hated this part of me because I hated this part of my father, but then when I really looked at it, I was just like him, and it made me say yuck, and I just hated it. But for me to hate him was for me to hate myself. What I needed to do was come into a saving knowledge and understanding. What I was dealing with was a soul relationship, a soul tie that needed to be identified and needed to be broken. And so as me and my brother was looking at our sons, we both concluded that, we said, man, they got it bad. They got it bad, because we knew how we had it. And one of the struggles that we had, I told y'all last week that I started looking and examining girls. You know, as you get older, it becomes women. But I started looking when I was 10 years old. It may have been sooner, but that's when I can remember. I can remember my attention gravitating when I was 10. It may have been 9. It may have been 8. But it became very pronounced at the age of 10. And then at 12 years old, I had my first sexual encounter. And so I was gone. I had this crave now, and I was promiscuous, and it just all kind of stuff. And I was just, it was just sex. The woman's anatomy just fascinated me, and I wanted it, and I felt like I needed it, and just all these things. And it overtook me to the point to where even today I'm still paying for that. But I looked, and my point is that we looked at our children, and I'm only going to earmark the son. And we said, man, they got it real bad, dude. They got it real bad. I said, I said, that dude is just like me. And my brother said, yeah, man, my son, he just like me. And of course, you know what that is. And so I'm bringing this to you because we all don't have the same thing. And I'm getting ready to really get in the crux of my message, but it won't be long today because I'm going to take my time to drill through this because of its importance. And so what we come our conclusion was that these dudes need help, and these dudes got some stuff from us that we got from our father, and that our father got from his fathers. Again, it's not male nor female, it's what comes down the pike of generations. We blame everything on Adam because there's somebody that has to be held accountable, but really it was Adam and Eve. Eve was the one that really committed, but Adam was the one that was held accountable. So when you look at it, you have two parties that are responsible, that is male and female. Now, I want to I want to deal with something here because the Bible says in 3 John and 2, he says that I wish, and I'm paraphrasing it here, it says that I wish above all that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. Now, we've been dealing with the soul thing, and I don't want to keep on, defining it, but it says, even as your soul prosper. Now, so the idea here, or the yearning, is that I want you to gain, to capture everything that you can, but I don't want you to do it without a soul that is committed, that is surrendered, that is devoted, that is in receipt of the things of God, that has the wisdom of God, that has the knowledge of God, that has all these things. So as we look back over to how I purposed this message, and I said that, the wicked part and the soul that has been twisted, right? What we're trying to do is get a soul back into alignment. The reason why uh, um, the writer there is saying, I wish above all that you prosper, even as your soul prospers, because he understands that there was a soul now that was out of alignment. And so most of us, we don't understand what is happening to us. So I want to give you a truncated view now of good and bad, but the the culprit here, the person that is responsible, is the soul. Your body becomes a byproduct of the yearning, the condition of your soul. And the soul is something that has been passed down from generation to generation. Again, when we look in Hebrews, and we talked, it wasn't in Hebrews, in was that First Corinthians 6, or was that First Corinthians 7? I forget. But it talks about the man now, and it talks about the sin, and it says that every sin is without the body, except the sin of fornication. Once you fornicate, then it says you do it with the body, you do it unto the body. Now, the fornication, what it does is it goes out and it grabs, because as soon as you have intercourse with another individual, and I like to think of it as a female. If you're male, if you're a female, a male, right, is heterosexual. That's the way I like to think of it. But we can't look at it that way, because there's homosexuality, and I know that word is not in the Bible, but we've evolved to understand that it is male with male, and it is female with another female. And so we have to take all this, and we have to appropriate it, and we have to put it into perspective. And so now we have a soul tie, or a soul now that it calls souls to it, because the issue is that you now become wrapped up, tangled up in all the souls that you engage with. You look at it as one person, but that one person is the embodiment of the potential of thousands of people, okay, or thousands of souls, because a soul is immaterial. So you can have a soul. When you look at that soul, it can look like, or that entity, it can look like it's one person, but it becomes thousands, tens of thousands. It has that capacity to expand. All right. And so now that's what you actually embrace. So now it comes into what we understand as a soul tie, because it goes out and it grabs things and it brings those things back. Not to mention that you were already born in sin and you are shaped in iniquity. And so you already have those things that you deal with. Again, it goes back to First Corinthians, the 7th chapter, and it talks about, I believe that's where it's at. It talks about sanctification. I have to stop and do a whole thing on sanctification, because sanctification is extremely deep. It's deep. And let me just say this, that salvation is free, but deliverance will take time, and it will cost you a whole lot to get delivered. So you're dealing with things that you inherited from your past, and then you're dealing with things that you go out and grab when you go and you get into fornication. Okay, so you have all these things now that you are dealing with. I'm just trying to, and I don't know if you're actually getting this or not, but I'm trying to, over the series of these messages, trying to get you to connect with Nephesh, or the soul, and to understand it. So we have these things. I got to skip forward here because I'm running out of time. So with these souls now, you have a combination of a variety of things. This is the reason why Moses saying that, take a lamb according to your father's house. So now when we look at Nephesh, souls, we have different types of souls. So I'm going to deal with some good souls, some good things, not first, and then we'll get into some of the other things, because I know a lot of us, all we want to do is deal with the stuff. Just talk to me with stuff that's going to make me feel good. It's going to make me feel better, right? So we have souls of wealth. When I say souls of wealth, sometimes in your bloodline, in your family, you can look back and you see just wealth. And I'm not talking about riches here, but I'm just saying that people, that they live out, and it just is passed down from generation to generation, that you see groups or families that just find themselves in a wealthy place. So you have souls of wealth, you have souls of blessing. And Proverbs 10 and 22, it says, the blessings of the Lord maketh one rich and addeth no sorrow. I remember talking to my daughters about this many, many years ago when they was little girls. And I use an analogy. I said, if God gives you something, whatever God gives you will not make you vomit or go to the toilet. Because I remember a time in my life, and I had a car note and I had a house note, and I was struggling with it. I was struggling. And so the question now is, did God give this to me, or was this a blessing that came from a different direction? Because the blessings of the Lord maketh one rich and adds no sorrow. So if you got to get up and at the end of the month, a week before the end of the month comes, and you on the toilet every day, then that didn't come from God. Okay, that you start freaking out, because it addeth no sorrow, it maketh one rich. And so there's a difference now, or the distinction between a blessing from the Lord and a blessing from the enemy. All right. So there, but all these is in the soul. It's all goes back to the soul. The body becomes a recipient. That is what we can see when we look at the Kennedys, when we look at the Rockefellers. We can put a face with the soul. Some of the faces that we put, it's if in the Kennedy family, it's assassinations. Well, that's a soul issue, and you got to get to the root of it. So the root, we can't see the soul, but it's a soul condition, but we see it actualized in JFK or this Kennedy or that Kennedy. That's where you see it. It's a soul issue. I'm trying to help. But in the Rockefellers, you will see it actualized in the family as it relates to finances and riches and that type of thing, right? And it just goes on and on and on. It's like you can't stop it. It kind of goes back to my message on favor. Let me move on. Health, soul of health. And then in health is well, I guess I said it already in 3 John and 2, as your soul prospers. So we won't go back over that. Prosperity, I mentioned about that. Soundness of mind. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. That's what he's given us. Was that 2 Timothy 2:7, something like somewhere in there, 1:7. But soundness of mind. Some families, when you look at them, it's just a sharpness. There's a soundness in it. Where does that come from? Now, I'm not saying that if you don't have it, that you can't get it. What I am saying is that some things it's inherited. Okay, it's past. It's in the soul. It's in the bloodline. So soundness of mind. Some are more than enough. You just look at some souls have more than enough. Some souls are souls of expansion. They're always growing. It's just that you just see fruitfulness in them, right? Overcoming. You see that souls just overcome. Can't nothing hold them down. Now, conversely, that's the good side. You have souls of poverty. You have souls of poverty. When you look in places like Haiti and stuff like that, it's just poverty never leaves. They're stricken with it. Even with a whole lot of us, we have issues that I can't come out of this place that I'm in. It's poverty. It's a condition of the soul. It's a condition of the soul. Sickness. Some people just born, my great grandmother had diabetes. My grandmother had diabetes. My mother had diabetes. I got diabetes, and it just keeps going because there is a soul connection right there that is bringing this stuff your way. Suicide is another one. I wish I really need to just be able to bask in this for a little bit, because never have we seen so pronounced as we are seeing today, people with this spirit, this push. Something is talking to me and telling me to jump off the bridge, to take the pills, to shoot myself. All this, it is a soul issue condition. We call it suicide now. These are soul ties. Ambition can go either way. You got the plus side and the minus side. A lot of times ambition drives us. That's what Adam and Eve had. There was the ambition. She looked at the tree and she desired it. She saw it as something good. When you're doing that, you have an ambition to go beyond where God has placed you or called you to be. I see something that is outside of my realm that I want. That's what we talk about. Stay in your lane. That's what that is. It is an ambition that will get you in trouble, but it's still a condition of the soul. I desire, I covet, I lust after things that I should not. So I'm just giving it ambition. Fighting. I grew up, I wish I could deal with this piece right here. Fighting. I had this issue of fighting when I was little. I grew up in the 70s. I grew up when they had the race riots and all this stuff. And I was one that I didn't understand until later on in life, that I was built to fight, but I wasn't built to fight with my hands. It came out an expression in my hands. I was built to fight in the spirit. I was always a protector. If you go back and somebody was doing audit and they look at my history, I was always looking out and seeing what was wrong, this, that, and the other, even to this day. And that's been it's a good thing, but it's been a downfall, because if you don't know how to harness it, if you don't know how to fight, you get messed up. I remember when I was building this house, and my ex and we came in and we was watching the process and all that. And there was something that the builder was doing that I didn't like. And me and him, we didn't see eye to eye. And so this particular day I came over and she was with me, and we pulled up in the driveway hadn't been pulled yet. So it was these big rocks. And so we pulled over in it. And he said something that was just out of place for me. And I was a fighter. I've been a fighter since I was a little boy. And when I say fighter, I'm not a big dude, but I would fight big guys. And I would just fight. I mean, I just don't ask me. I don't know, but I would just fight. And when I would fight, I would just completely black out. So I didn't know what was going on. All I know is, if once I get to this certain spot, I'm going in. And either whether I'm gonna lose the fight or I'm gonna win the fight, to me, it didn't matter. We was fighting. So I remember she looked at me because she knew me, and she said, Donnie, Donnie, Donnie. At this point now I'm saved, but it was something in me. It was in my soul. My daddy would fight, but my daddy wouldn't fight like I would fight. See, I got the worst of all of it. My daddy was a fighter, but he would fight things that he knew he could beat. I was a fighter, and to me, I didn't care. I'm like, well, you know what? You 6'2", 6'3", let's go. I don't care, male. And at that time, if it was a woman, we was everybody. I was just gonna fight. Okay, y'all judge me, whatever. We all got problems, and I'm trying to show you soul connections and soul ties here. And so I had an issue with fighting, but really, what God put in me was, I was a warrior, but I was supposed to be a warrior in the spirit. I was supposed to be a protector in the spirit. But because I did not have a saving knowledge, it came out in my hands. And so this is some of the things that we are dealing with. When you say, well, where did that come from? What all of it is, it's a soul tie. Okay, fighting. Hatred. Some of us have, we call it a spirit, but it's a soul tie that I just hate. I don't know why I hate. I don't know why I feel like this, but I just have a spirit of hatred. It's a lot of stuff here. We have laziness, complacency, confusion, literacy. All these different things are soul ties, things that we need to escape and be delivered from. And what we need to have an understanding. I can't do no more. I'm already out of my time. Okay, so maybe next week or the next time we get together, we can go through and further unpack this, and I can show you even deeper in how some of these things I have had to learn about and learn how to overcome them. But to overcome them, the first thing that you have to do is identify what it is. And most of us have not identified our problems. We have not identified our soul connection, our soul ties, our lust, our yearnings, our desires. And so we walk around with these issues. When you look at people that's schizophrenic, when you look at people that's autistic, these kids and all this stuff, all this goes back to soul ties, soul connections, and soul brokenness. But we don't know enough about it, so therefore we can't address it, right? So we need to get into this. This may be a bit too much. I don't know, but anyway, listen. I still want you to share it with a neighbor, friend, and enemy. Somebody might be able to get something out of it. I want you to know that I love you. God loves you so much more. I want you to go in God's strength, his love, his might, but most of all, I want you to go in God's grace. I'm Dr. Donnie Eatman, and I am the face of Face to Face. I want you to be blessed until the next time. Shalom.